The dark side of high intelligence nobody talks about. We celebrate intelligence as the ultimate gift. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. Being highly intelligent often becomes a psychological prison that destroys your happiness, relationships, and peace of mind. Society refuses to acknowledge this because it shatters our mythology about success. But the reality is that exceptional intelligence frequently transforms from blessing to curse in ways that leave brilliant minds suffering in silence. Your superior analytical abilities that solve complex problems during the day become your worst enemy at night. While others sleep peacefully, you're trapped in endless mental loops, analyzing every conversation from 17 different angles, predicting disasters that will never happen, and running scenarios until your brain feels like it's overheating. This isn't occasional worry, it's chronic mental hyperactivity that research consistently links to higher rates of anxiety and depression among highly intelligent individuals. Your brain literally cannot shut off because it's constantly processing information at levels that would overwhelm most people. You solve equations and strategic problems effortlessly, then lie awake solving emotional problems that don't even exist yet. The social isolation is perhaps even more devastating. Intelligence creates an invisible barrier between you and virtually everyone else that grows thicker with each interaction. Imagine being in a room full of colleagues, nodding along to a strategic plan you immediately recognize as fundamentally flawed. You want to speak up, but you already corrected the last 3 proposals and the meeting before that. Eventually, you stop talking, not because you're wrong, but because being right too often isolates you from the very people you're trying to help. You can't relate to most people's concerns because they seem trivial compared to the complex issues occupying your mind. They can't relate to yours because your thoughts operate on frequencies they can't access. The result is crushing loneliness, despite being surrounded by people constantly seeking your advice, solutions, and insights. Research shows highly intelligent people report having fewer close friends and feeling misunderstood in most social situations because you're essentially fluent in a language most people don't speak. You become the go-to problem solver for everyone else, while having nobody who can reciprocate that intellectual and emotional support. Your exceptional pattern recognition and analytical skills also create the perfectionism death trap that paralyzes more highly intelligent people than any external obstacle ever could. Your brain that can clearly see optimal solutions also magnifies every flaw in your work, relationships, and decisions. Nothing you create feels adequate because you can always envision the perfect version hovering just out of reach. This leads to chronic procrastination, abandoned projects, and a life half-lived because good enough feels like abject failure. When you can conceptualize exactly what perfect would look like, many highly intelligent people achieve far less than their potential not because they lack ability, but because they're paralyzed by their own impossibly high standards that would be considered excellent by anyone else's measure. The existential awareness burden compounds everything else into something approaching psychological torture. Your intelligence forces you to see too much, understand too deeply, and grasp concepts that others can comfortably ignore. You understand the randomness of existence, the inevitability of suffering, the cosmic insignificance of human concerns, and the ultimate meaninglessness that underlies most of what society considers important. While others live in blissful ignorance of life's harsh realities, you carry the weight of hyper-awareness about everything from mortality to societal problems to the futility of most human endeavors. You can't unsee the world's problems or unfeel their staggering complexity because your mind won't let you stop analyzing and understanding. This hyper-awareness frequently leads to depression and nihilism that others cannot even begin to comprehend because they've never experienced the burden of seeing reality this clearly. But here's the reframe that changes everything. What if your awareness of mortality didn't lead to nihilism, but to urgency? What if understanding the futility of most endeavors allowed you to choose the few that actually matter with brutal clarity? That's not depression, that's precision. Your existential awareness becomes a filtering system that cuts through society's noise to identify what genuinely deserves your limited time and energy, while others waste years on meaningless pursuits. Your intelligence grants you the devastating gift of seeing through illusions immediately. Society compounds these internal struggles by trapping you in impossible expectations that become a suffocating prison of constant performance pressure. Everyone expects you to change the world, solve their problems, have brilliant insights on demand, and somehow remain endlessly patient with questions that feel elementary to your level of thinking. But what if you're exhausted from being everyone's intellectual resource? What if you just want to experience normalcy occasionally without someone asking you to analyze their relationship or solve their business problem? The pressure to constantly perform at genius level is mentally exhausting. And when you inevitably fall short of others' inflated expectations of your unlimited potential, the disappointment from both sides becomes crushing. You're not allowed to have off days, make mistakes, or admit you don't know something without people questioning whether you're really as smart as they thought. Some people hear these struggles and dismiss them with "that's a good problem to have," or "I wish I had" your problems. But they don't realize that pain is relative, and the smarter you are, the more creative your suffering becomes. Your intelligence doesn't just solve problems, it creates entirely new categories of psychological torture that average minds never encounter. Without proper understanding and support systems, intelligence can turn inward and systematically destroy the very self it's supposed to elevate. The myth that smart people have it easy is perhaps the most dangerous misconception, because it prevents highly intelligent individuals from seeking help for struggles that others can't even conceptualize. But here's what changes everything. Understanding that your intelligence isn't the enemy, it's the complete lack of systems, support structures, and strategies designed for how your mind actually operates. The solutions aren't generic self-help platitudes, but specific techniques that work with your cognitive architecture instead of against it. For the overthinking spiral, implement cognitive compartmentalization by scheduling exactly 15 minutes daily for designated worry time and ruthlessly redirecting racing thoughts outside that window. Use the 5-minute rule. If you can't solve something in 5 minutes of focused thinking, it goes into your scheduled worry session instead of consuming hours of mental energy. Your brain needs structured boundaries around its processing power. The social isolation ends when you stop trying to connect with everyone and start specifically seeking intellectual peer groups through Mensa, specialized professional networks, academic organizations, or online communities for gifted adults. One meaningful conversation with someone who operates at your intellectual level provides more emotional sustenance than hundreds of surface-level interactions. Quality over quantity isn't just preference for highly intelligent people, it's psychological necessity. Combat perfectionism by deliberately adopting optimal imperfection as your new standard, setting 85% as your target for non-critical tasks. Your 85% is typically superior to most people's 100% effort. So you're not lowering standards, you're calibrating them to reality. Reserve perfectionism only for the few things that genuinely matter most. Rather than applying it to everything and accomplishing nothing, transform your existential awareness from burden into purpose. By channeling your ability to see problems clearly into focused problem-solving energy, choose one meaningful issue that resonates with your values and direct your intellectual power. There, instead of drowning in awareness of every possible problem simultaneously, your hyper-awareness becomes a superpower when applied strategically rather than diffusely. Picture this: while others stumble through life reacting to problems they never saw coming, you're already 3 steps ahead, having anticipated and prepared for challenges that blindside everyone else. Your curse becomes your competitive advantage. Boundaries around your intellectual energy by practicing the phrase "I need time to think about that properly" instead of providing instant, geniusly viable responses to every request. You don't owe anyone constant access to your mental resources. And protecting your cognitive energy is essential for maintaining both your sanity and your actual problem-solving effectiveness. Think of your intelligence as a hyper engine that requires premium fuel and regular maintenance, not a utility that should run constantly at maximum capacity for everyone else's benefit. Most importantly, build a support system specifically designed for giftedness by finding therapists who understand highly intelligent clients, joining communities created for gifted adults, and educating your closest relationships about how your mind works differently from typical social expectations.